Welcome back, Warcoders. Bayou Boogie here, and today we're going to go over monster identification codes, monster stats, and how to determine which monsters are worth keeping. First, we're going to dig into the codes our community uses to identify monsters, builds, and things like that. You might have seen people on Discord or Reddit referencing 111s, 213s, 333s, etc. These codes are a quick way to identify a monster's stat lines. The first number represents a monster's agility, which is shown in the app as a 1, 2, or 3 stars, and that references the dice that gets rolled for the monster to dodge its attacks. The second number represents a monster's accuracy, which shows in the app as either low, medium, or high, and refers to the dice that monster rolls to hit the opponent. The third number refers to the damage that the monster can deal. This is the only one that lacks a quick, simple way in the game to recognize it, as the dice are either 2d8, 2d10, or 2d12. So we refer to those as 1, 2, 3. So in this monster's case, we have a 3, 3, 2. Easy to determine the agility and the accuracy because of the in-game stars and labeling of the accuracy. For the damage, you just have to memorize D8 is a 1, D10 is a 2, and D12 is a 3. A couple other monsters we'll take a quick look at. We have a 2, 3, 1, a 2, 3, 3, a 3, 3, 2. Again, we're looking at that first number is the number of stars. Second number is accuracy, low, medium, high. Third number, D8, D10, D12. We're going to scroll down a little bit. I want to find a 1-star monster to share. Whoops. So this is a 1, 1, 1, which is one of the meta monsters people like to build out as titans. Now we're going to dive even deeper into the stats of a monster. So on the monster's screen, you're going to see its name up here at the top, followed by its hit points and level. At level 1, a monster's hit points can range as low as 26 and as high as 79, depending on these 3-digit stat lines. Monsters that have lower stats, like the 111, have higher hit points. Their range is 72 to 79 at level 1, while monsters that have higher stats, such as a 3-3, this one's a 2, but they tend to have lower hit points. 3-3-3 being the highest stat line has the lowest HP range from 26 to 32. A few other things we can see here. We have the monster's agility, which we've already discussed. We can also see its resistances and weakness. If a monster resists an element, it's going to take 1 less dice of damage from an attack of that elemental type. So if a monster that is dark attacked this monster with 2 dice of damage, it's going to reduce it by 1, so it's only going to do 1 dice of damage. Likewise, if a monster is weak to an attack, so if a poison monster attacked this monster, instead of doing 2 dice of damage, it will do a 3rd dice of damage. So it gets 1 additional dice if the monster is weak to that attack. Now there's 14 different elements in the game. You can see them by clicking here. And those elements, every monster is going to spawn with an element on their attack, resist, and usually weakness. However, there is a 1 in 200 or a 0.5% chance that a monster can spawn without any weakness, which would show up as NA. There's also certain items that can add additional resistances and items that add additional weaknesses. No monster can have more than 3 resistances. However, I don't believe there is a limit to the number of weaknesses they can have. I'll show you real quick what a monster with an NA weakness looks like. So this monster rolled no weakness. Another example would be one of my main teams, I play a lot of monsters with 3 resistances. So those are all added by items. One thing to keep in mind is if your monster naturally resists a certain element, you shouldn't add items that also resist that element because you can't double up on a resistance. You're essentially wasting that item. All right. Back to looking at the monster's stat lines. We're going to get down here a little further. We have a few buttons here. Add item, which takes us to a submenu. And here we can add our monster's secondary attacks. As they level up, we'll unlock these different monster equipment slots as well as appearance slots. The items we have that we can equip on them are down here. We'll get into equipment more in a later video. Down here we have a button. This can allow you to release your monsters, to get rid of them and free up some more space to spawn new ones. You can use the monster as your player icon profile, and you have a heal button to heal the monster. Below that you can see the monster's current XP. This guy hasn't done any fighting, so he's at 0. The bar represents how far along that monster is to its next level, as well as showing the remaining XP to level at the bottom here. Once your monster reaches level 5, these will no longer change, but you'll be able to see it continue to gain more experience. Below it, we have our monster's attack, which is an AI-generated description of what it does. Some of these are just super fun to read. They don't actually have any impact on your monster. It's just a fun little piece of flair to it, stuff like that. We'll get down here to damage type. Again, there's 14 elements to choose from, and your monster will begin with 1 damage type, and then have its accuracy, the amount of dice it rolls, and its max damage. So from here, let's get into probably one of the most common questions. What monsters are worth keeping? Personally, I'm going to advocate the #1 factor in keeping a monster just comes down to, is it cool? If it meets the cool factor, by all means keep it. You can build it to carve out a role in the environment of the game. Even if you roll the lowest possible hit points for that particular set of stats, that monster can still perform just fine with the right equipment. Now, if you want to go beyond the coolness factor, I do have a few tips to help you cull the herd within the limitations of your monster slots. So the first thing I like to do when I'm culling my monsters is I usually try to take them into combat so they can at least try to get me a few coins before I determine whether or not I'll keep them. From there, I'll open my monster folder for my new spawns. I will set its status to defeated. So I've only got the monsters who have fought their battles. And then I will sort by hit points. Starting with ascending, and I usually cull anything under 30 hit points unless it's really cool. So, you know, poor Chronowraith, he doesn't make the cut. He's gone. Cuckoo Voos, he didn't make the cut. He's gone. Stuff like that. You can also sort by descending. And so we got a monster here that's got max health at level 1. But I'll scroll down and like Terraglyph here, he's rolled the lowest HP for that stat block, so he can go as well. So the reason I like to start with this is any monsters between 26 and 29 hit points or monsters between 72 and 76 hit points are low stats for a 3-3-3 or a 1-1-1. No other monsters are going to roll a level 1 set of hit points within that bracket, so it's just a real quick, easy way for me to cut down on a few of them. Lava Golem's another one, if he just doesn't have anything else special going on, so he's got to go. Another thing I like to do is I will sort or filter by resistances. So we've mentioned already there are 14 resistances in the game. Of those 14 resistances, there are 5 resistances you cannot add to a monster with equipment. Those are dark, light, metal, wind, and psychic. So I would give those monsters more consideration because they have a natural resistance I can't get otherwise. You can also consider electric to be in there, as the only way to add electric resist is with a legendary lake shade potion from the tournaments in game, and those are fairly rare. So these 6 elements are going to be a little higher on my radar to keep over some of these other ones that I can add with items. You can also do a sort by primary attack. So for instance, let's say you already have several water attackers. So you can bring this up and it's like, okay, well, I have water attackers, I don't need a lot. And if you look right here, you can see 3 of these 5 water attackers have the same attack resist combo. So from there, I can just look to see who looks the coolest or who has better hit points, which one has better stat lines I like in here. Like, do I like the 3-3-2 versus the 3-2-2? You know, things like that can allow me to quicker determine which monsters get the chopping block. It also helps you cut down on duplicate monsters as your roster continues to grow. So here I got another duplication. I can quickly cull. We got a 3-2-2 and a 3-3-2. I kind of like the extra stat for the 3 hit point difference, so that guy goes. So yeah, the next thing I recommend is setting up collections. So you'll see in here I have several collections already created. I like to organize my monsters into teams of 30 because within that set I could get 2 monsters of each resistance, 14 of them, that's 28 monsters. I have 2 extra monster slots, and then as I add equipment and stuff to it, they just get better and better coverage. So within these groups I can go inside and I can filter those groups by different resistances to see, okay, if this one's all skeleton-like guys, I've got 5 that can resist fire, but I'm weak on electric. So I know if I find a skeletal monster that has an electric resistance, he's something I should probably consider keeping to maybe add to this collection. Another great part of the collections is, and I highly recommend everybody do this, create a collection for new spawns. When you go to your scanner, you have the option upon creating a monster to spawn it in a collection, and you can select something like new spawns. That keeps all your newly made monsters separate from the ones you've already kept. Makes it way easier to go in later on and go through this collection, see what do I want to keep, what do I want to get rid of. I actually take it another step further. I have a maybes folder where the monsters that have better resist or I like the artwork of, maybe they're a rare typing combo, I'll throw them in there to consider and do a more thorough purge of that later on when I have time. You might notice during this video I have not mentioned weaknesses very much at all. And that's because they're the stat I put the least thought into when determining which monsters I want to keep. I would recommend saving your NA monsters, partly because they're rare and partly because I'm partial to them. One more thing before we conclude this video. If you find you don't have enough space for all of your monsters and you just don't see a way to cut down the roster anymore, consider purchasing additional monster slots. 115 monster slots for 20 bucks is an amazing quality of life upgrade to the game, and you're helping support an indie developer who's putting a lot of that right back into developing the game. So just a little way you can keep stockpiling your monsters and help keep the game we all love growing. So that's the basics for understanding your monsters, the identification codes, and helping keep your roster manageable. Next video, I'll get into some of the different stat lines that are popular and builds that some of the higher experienced players rely on to be successful. Thanks again for watching, everyone. This is Bayou Boogie. I'll see you in the swamp.